building a lumber rack. So in this video, I'll be showing you how I built this lumber rack. And I have to directly credit this whole project to a video I followed, mostly using this guy's measurements. His video was the best I've seen of these types of racks, so a big shout out to this Homesteadonomics guy. In my video, I'll try to add a few other nice to know tips and things to look out for when making this. So I started at Home Depot to buy the plywood, but the problem is that a 4x8 foot panel is very expensive. And I don't know if this is common, but at my Home Depot, the large saw is always conveniently out of order, and there's no way I can fit that into my compact car. So I had to look for pre-cut plywood and came across this decently priced 1/2 inch 2x4 foot panel. And before I get into the builds, as Asians, we always want to know the price of things, so here's the breakdown, which is about $117 for all the material if you're starting from scratch. So the first step is the horizontal cuts of the 2x4 foot panel into 3 parts, which are 14 inches each. And then you cut off the last 6-inch section. Next, I cut the pieces vertically for 2 10-inch pieces. But you also have to leave a 1.5 inch offset cut to match the height of the 2x4 piece. Then you just make diagonal cuts and make sure the pieces are lined up. And you should have this 4-inch piece to cut off as well. So at Home Depot earlier, I actually only bought one 2x4 foot panel of plywood because I fortunately had a 1/2 inch board lying around with the same overall dimensions, so I cut that one too. Then it was on to cutting the 2x4s, making 12.5 inch cuts, and I needed 12 pieces. Then I lightly sanded the rough cuts of the plywood. And I used a spare 2x4 piece to allow the 1.5 inch gap in the back. Then I just joined the plywood pieces with 1¼ inch screws. After that, I measured out the dimensions to work with, and most of the wood I use is no longer than 8 foot long, but I also needed to account for my garage door railing, and it allowed me a little over 6 foot in height. So I cut 3 6-foot tall posts. The next step was finding the studs, and traditionally studs are 16 inches apart from each other, which was the case for me. But I only wanted 3 posts, so I put the post every other stud at 32 inches apart. And in order to have a secure fit on the existing stud, I would recommend at least a 3.5-inch screw, which is what I used, especially if you account for the thickness of the drywall. In order to get the post level, I attached this 2x4 on the bottom so it'll be easier to handle when I drill the post into the stud. And it honestly doesn't matter too much on how precisely level it is, just as long as it's not completely crooked. Then I drilled the post every other stud 32 inches apart. Then I attached the shelving and had enough space to allow 10 inches between each shelf. And then I used 1¼ inch wood screws to drill into the post. I made sure the shelves were decently level. And I did want to add some extra security to the shelf since wood can be really heavy, so I bought some 4-inch lag screws to secure both the bottom and top of each post. So for each post I used a total of 2 4-inch lag screws and 5 3.5-inch wood screws. And lastly, I removed the bottom 2x4 piece. Now I saw the other guy's video and he put it to the test with some pull-ups, and I didn't want to completely copy his, so I just did some good old dips. Alright, not too bad. And then it was time to load up this rack and organize my pieces. The most ergonomic way you want to organize these pieces is to have the lightest ones on the top and the heavier ones on the bottom. And there you have it, a great, relatively easy way to organize your wood pieces. I was really happy how it turned out, and it just makes the space look a lot more tidy and cleaner. Alright, so if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up if you like, subscribe if you want to see new content, and we'll see you next time.